Hey everybody, it's me, Chainsaw. Here is my first video I've ever made on how I made a cosplay. It's Mirko from My Hero Academia. There's a few parts missing, but overall, this is how I made the cosplay. So for the cloth parts of the costume, which are the leotard, the leggings, and the furry bits, you need fur, white fur, long length so you can shave it however you want to. I think a half a yard to, yeah, probably just a half a yard is good enough. Then we need, for the base of the leotard, white fabric that's 4-way stretch. This is a white, like, matte vinyl. I think you only need a yard. I have a bunch for some other project that I don't remember what I got this for. And then you need gold fabric, just a little bit of gold fabric for the moon on her boobies. Boop. And then you need, so she's like got like indigo leggings and like details on her leotard. So I got this because I couldn't find a right purple fabric, so I got this this Mystique fabric that is a navy blue with black dots on it from bluemoonfabrics.com, and I got 2 yards because I don't do half yards, but I only need a yard and a half. And to get it a little bit more indigo, I am going to attempt to stovetop oil it in purple dye and see if it will get a little bit more purpley and be more blurple. You don't need to do that. I think this would look just fine, but I'm going to be extra because I want it to be perfect. And then you need, for the leotard, a zipper that goes from the back of your neck to your booty. White zipper. It should probably be an invisible one, but I already had this one lying around, so I'm just using this one. And then for the leggings, she has 2 little gold buttons on the front of her leggings. And I'm going to glue this onto her leggings, right at the front of her legs. And then you need some white velcro. This is double-sided velcro I got on Amazon, but I'm going to sew this onto the bodysuit where the waist armor goes. So the first thing I did was I made the leggings because that's just the easiest part for me to do. But what I did was I made a pattern of my leg. It's like a long sock, and I cut it out and I serged it together. But actually these socks have 2 parts. They have the main sock part, and then they have about a 4 or 5 inch wide rectangle that's sewn into like a tube at the top. Because it has like a seam at the top where the button is, it's not just a complete sock. You could also just put a seam there if you wanted to, but I like the way this looks better. It's a nice clean edge as well. And then what you're going to do is you're going to sew the raw edges together, like right side up. The tube is right side on either side, but you're going to want to make sure that it's aligned properly. And then you're going to serge across. Serge, 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 serge. Wow, serge, serge, serge. And then there'll be some left over, but you can just cut that off. And then you're going to make sure the sides are even, and you're going to serge all the way down the sock. You could also use a stretch stitch for this part, but a serge is usually just more flexible, so less chance of tearing. Leggy, leggy, shiny, leggy, 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 leggy. But yeah, they look pretty good. This is the pattern I'm going to use for the leotard. It's a tape pattern. I've lost like 10 pounds since I used it last, so it might be a little big on me, but I'm not going to change the pattern. I'm just going to make the leotard, and if it needs to be taken in, I'll take it in. You don't have to use a tape pattern. I used the Yaya Han leotard pattern for a long time. It was pretty good. It obviously didn't fit as well as the one I made for myself, but it should do the job if you don't want to make your own tape pattern. Next, I traced all 3 times 2 pattern pieces onto the white fabric
make sure that the stretchiest side is the side that is horizontal, if that makes sense. I used a gray Sharpie just because it's not as dark as a black one, so if a little bit is visible, you won't see it as much. It's probably better to use like colored pencil or something, but whatever. That's what I did. And then serge the front together, the two front panels together, and just the two front panels together, because next we're going to do the top stitching for the detail onto the front, and it'll be easier if it's just those two panels. Next, I made a stencil of the appropriate size, and then I spray glued it to the fabric. And see, it goes perfect on the front panels. And then I pinned it in because I'm going to do the top stitching. I'm actually going to do the top stitching from the bottom so that it looks more like a cutout. You could do it the other way around, but I just prefer the way it would look as a cutout. I think it looks nicer. I decided to glue instead of just stencil it because I can't sew a straight line, and it'll be easier for me to sew a straight line with the paper there. Yep. And I'm using a stretch stitch. I probably should have used a better camera angle, but yeah, you can see I'm going right along there. And just be really careful that you can get it as straight as possible. Just make sure that fabric is like as flat as possible so it doesn't pucker. Yeah, and make sure that you meet all the way on the other end, so it's like a complete circle. And then next, you're gonna cut out the white right there, but make sure you're extra careful and don't cut through the gold, or you'll have to do all that over again. Make sure that you get close to the top stitching, but not like so close that you cut the top stitching. Also, make sure that if you did it like me, where you're actually stitching from the bottom, make sure that the thread in the bottom of your machine is white. Yeah, see, it looks all cute. And make sure to cut all the extra from the bottom, but then again, don't cut too close to the stitching because it'll come apart. And next, I cut the very front part of the suit into the weird block shape that it is, because my normal leotard pattern obviously is not shaped like that. Next, I'm sewing the side panels on to the front panels. Well, I guess to make the complete front of the leotard. And then I don't have fabric weight, so I'm just using random objects, but I'm going to create the blue paneling on the front, and I'm going to just cut a bunch of extra off, and I'll show you what I'll do with that later. But make sure that you cut enough to be able to fold under the front of the leg holes. And then across, just cut more than you think you'll need. And put that piece of blue fabric aside. And then cut a bunch of extra tubes, or I guess not a bunch, but 2 extra, because you're going to have 2 armpit holes. I think I made them about 3 or 4 inches wide. You're going to use this tubing for the armpit holes and just cut more. You can either measure how much you think you'll need, or I always just cut extra because I'm not worried about the fabric since I have a lot. And throw that aside too. Next, I'm measuring how high I want the blue to come up in the back and on the front sides, if that makes sense. Probably not. But I want the tubing that I'm going to sew on the butt to match up to the paneling on the front. So now I'm cutting out the tubing for the butt. I'm just cutting more than I think I need again. I think I did it about 4 inches wide again. Or maybe 5. I can't remember. I should have written this down. next is the dyeing. We're going to dye all of the pieces that we have cut out so far, the blue pieces so far, including an extra about square foot of that blue fabric for the shoes later, and a scrap piece of fabric to test, which I am doing right now. I left it in for about 10 seconds, and then I pulled it out and rinsed it, and then dried it with a hairdryer to see if it was the right color. And you'll see it in about just a second. Yep, see, look, it looks more purple. And then here is the dried piece compared to the before. It's a little less shiny, but I will trade the shiny for the correct color. And then I dyed all of the pieces individually, all of the leggings, and all of the tubes, and the panel for the front. And then, yeah, so this is a better comparison of what it looked like. But yeah, make sure you dye all those pieces and let them dry somewhere. And make sure you rinse it until it's clear too, all the pieces. Next, I install the zipper with a normal stitch. Yeah, I'm having a rave in my room because I was sad that no concerts for a while because of the quarantine. But yeah, and then after I sewed the zipper in, of course, I took a stretch stitch and sewed the butt together. And next, we're going to attach the front panel. Make sure that it is super, super, super flat. The white part is super, super flat against the blue, or the blurple rather, and even. Pin it down. Good. Next, we're going to mark where her weird panel lines are. I just freehanded it. Probably should have used a ruler, but it turned out fine. So I did one side, and then I made sure that the other side matched. I just kind of eyeballed it. I just stared at it for a while and tried to think about where it would land on my body. And it turned out pretty good, so. But make sure that it's even on both sides. And I did measure to make sure that the panel comes out just as high on both sides. And then you're just going to top stitch that in. Make sure that if you're doing it like I am from the bottom again, that you make sure that the thread in the bottom of your machine is a dark blue. And I use a stretch stitch, of course. And then cut out the make sure you don't cut out the wrong side. Cut out the like the U-shaped inside portion. I'm sure you can figure it out. And again, don't get too close to the stitching, or else when it's on your body and it stretches, it might come undone. I had that happen with my Widowmaker because I wasn't careful with how close I cut. Leave like about 1 millimeter. And then repin that bottom crotch portion to make sure that it's flush to the blue or the blurple. See how clean it looks? And now we're going to fold the extra bits over. Make sure that when you originally cut that, there was about at least 5/8 on the side. You might even want to do a little more just to be careful. But yeah, I use clips for this part because it just stays more flush. Then you're just going to do a stretch stitch all all the way down the side right there. I did it from the bottom just so I could see what I was doing better. And I do it like as wide as the foot is away from the edge. Or at least where the needle goes on the stretch stitch, if that makes sense. Just so it stays consistent and it's a clean edge. Do that on both sides, obviously. And next, I marked on the back portion of the leotard how wide or how far up on the front part of the leotard that panel goes on the side. So that I can at least try to make sure that where the tube on the back matches the panel on the front. Wow, I could have said that better, but I think you understand what I'm saying. I really need to script these videos because I'm not very good at talking. But yeah, so you're going to sew both right sides together for this tube part. That you're going to do this for the armpits too. So you're going to sew twice. You're going to put the right sides together, sew along the edge as wide as you want the tube to be. So I think for me it was about 2 inches, and then you're going to fold it back over the edge, which is what I'm doing there. And then you're going to sew it at about like the 5/8. So it's going to be folded twice. And then you're just going to sew all of the parts of the leotard together, the sides, the crotch, and the shoulders. Now we're doing the armpits. We're doing the same thing that we did for the butt tubes. So the right sides together against the armpit, and with a stretch stitch, obviously, as wide as you would like the armpit tubes to be. Then you're going to fold it back over, and then fold it over the edge, and then sew down the side. Maybe I should do like a video on this part, like a separate video on how I do my tube edges, because it might be kind of confusing if you don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I use the clips for this, because it makes it better. Yeah. There it is. There's the armpit. Make sure you trim the inside portion out. Next, I'm going to attach the buttons. I took my awl and I made little tiny holes in the very front part of my thigh highs, and I put East 6000 on the back of the buttons, and I just shoved the little button hole thing through the side, the hole. And then the gloves I forgot to record, but I just did a turkey, like the turkey pattern, and then the wrist parts are made out of tubes with weird edges, weird spiky edges, and foam on the center, in the center. And here are the cloth parts. I think it looks pretty good and pretty clean. Next up is the ears. I made a pattern for an ear, and I used it to you're going to make 2 base pieces for each ear, and then 1 front piece for each ear, like that. And then what you're going to do is take wire and sandwich it between both of the white pieces. You're just going to hot glue it down as best you can, and then you're also going to hot glue wire in a few parts of it horizontally so that you can bend it any which way that you want to bend it. And here I'm putting in on some of the horizontal pieces. And next you're going to pin some fur together, and you're going to trace on your foam piece. You're going to leave a little bit of extra space because once you fold it inside out, it's going to get less voluminous than you think it would. So yeah, now you're going to sew it together with a normal stretch stitch. If you can try to shove the fur under there, that's good, but like into the ear, if that makes sense, it's better, but it shouldn't make that much of a difference. I try to shove the fur in there a little bit. You can see me doing it there. Wow, I like really zoned out here, huh? Yeah, so just keep going and leave it open at the bottom, obviously, because you're going to need to turn it inside out. Yeah, so trim it. Trim away the fur. Again, don't get too close to the edge or else it's going to be a disaster. I left a little bit extra at the bottom just in case. And you're going to turn it inside out, and then you're going to try to make sure that the end is as pointy as you can possibly get it. Like shove a pen or something in there. And then try to pull all the hair out of the side seams because it'll get stuck in there. That's why you try to fold it under when you sewed it. Now you're going to try to shove. Oh, I reinforced the tips of my bunny ears because they weren't strong enough. So I just put some wire in there, on there. And you're going to shove it into the hole. Or try to. It's like harder than it looks because it's so snug. But you're going to try to get in there as good as you can. Make sure that it's straight in there. And then you're going to trim this fur. Some people use clippers. My clippers suck, so I'm just going to end up using scissors. But yeah, glue the hole closed, or at least not all the way closed because you're going to need to stick a screw in there later, but at least partially. Yeah, so I'm just trimming like almost... I guess it's up to you how long you want the hair to be, but, or fur, I guess I should say, but leave the outside, bottom, like the outside of the ear, like leave that fur there and kind of try to blend it so it doesn't just look abrupt. Yeah, and I, did footage of me airbrushing, but it like was out of frame. This is the best that I managed to salvage. Yeah, so just take the pink and airbrush it, like, do it before you add the front part. Ideally, you can go back later and airbrush it more. But yeah, just airbrush the center pink all the way from the base to the top. And just look at the reference while you're doing it to make sure. If you really wanted it to look cleaner, you could tape it off, but I was lazy, so I didn't do that. And then next you're going to do the front parts of the ears. So you're going to take a piece of wire and glue it in between the red, or I guess it doesn't have to be red. It can be whatever color craft foam. But between the little piece of craft foam for that and the fur. And then you're going to cut the edge that is outside, on the outside. On the inside. You're going to cut that pretty close to the foam, and then the inside part you're going to cut longer because you're going to fold it onto the inside of the foam. Like so. And then see, like, it lines up with the base part of the ear. And you're going to trim it just like you trimmed the other part of the ear until you get to the bottom. And then you're going to leave the part that is inside of the ear longer. So that floof goes over like the ear hole. And then you're going to glue it down. You're going to be really careful when you do this because you don't want to get hot glue all over your ear, but you're going to glue like that very like edge onto the inside edge of the ear. And you're going to make sure it's like clean so that it doesn't stick out super obviously. But it should look relatively natural. And then next you're going to do the neck roll. So I just sewed a piece of fur, folded over a little longer than my neck because it's a thick boy. And you turn it inside out and then you trim the fur. And I trimmed the fur towards the middle shorter because in the reference pictures, like the roll looks like it's like a little bit thinner. In the middle, I could have used something else to do it, but that's how I thought it looked best. And then you're going to sew Velcro. I trimmed the hair extra short where I needed to trim the velcro just so that it was easier to sew. And then that's how it closes on the back of my neck. And then next up, for the shoes, I used a pair of Walmart flats that I have had laying around in my garage for like literally like 5 or 6 years, but you can use like any ballet flats really. And this is where the fabric that I told you to save from earlier comes in. Don't mind all of the hair. This is from trimming all the white hair from the ears earlier. I didn't do a good job cleaning it up, so now it's just stuck on everything. But yeah, glue the dyed fabric onto the very sides of the shoes. The only part that doesn't need to be covered with this fabric is the very back, because there's going to be armor there, and the very front because of like the weird bunny feet thing on the front. But yeah, then you're going to want to make a little tape pattern of your foot wearing the flat. And then you're going to draw the little pattern for the heel armor and the toe armor. I actually didn't actually keep the toe armor part. I just did a cutout. But the back, I don't even know if you'd really need to make a pattern for it. You might just do like a flat piece. Next, I made a little pattern for the bunny feet. I made it a little wider than my foot so that I could make a cutout to put the flat into the butt of it. I'll show you how I do that in a minute. But yeah, I used 10mm craft foam Ava mounts to do this, and I did 3 layered on top of each other. And then I, for the bottom 2, I cut out a hole the size of the flat. And I ended up making it a little shorter because they were too long. Yeah, I'm just gonna glue them together. And then glue the top piece over. Also, I didn't show myself making the pattern for the piece that goes behind this piece, but I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Now trace on the toe pattern. Mine didn't match very well on both feet because I was sloppy. You could do this way nicer than me. And then I dremeled the edges of the toes to make them look a little smoother. And then I didn't show this part, but after I make all of these pieces, I heat seal them with a heat gun. And I fix it up because it wasn't quite even. And then I'm going to get my heat burning tool. And I am going to sloppily bird the design in. And I also touched up like some of the crappy, yeah, do a better job than me. I'm like not very good at using this thing, so I'm like sloppy with it. But yeah, I used it to touch up some of my really bad razor blading I did earlier too. Yeah, and you're gonna do the weird little toenail parts too. And then after this part is when I heat sealed all the foam parts. And then after I heat sealed the foam parts, then I took the quick seal and I sealed the edges. I only did like 2 layers. If you wanted to be like way smoother, you could use multiple layers, but I was like, this was like one of the last parts I made in the cosplay, and I was like, oh man, I just want to be done. Yeah, I just smoothed it with my finger and a little bit of water. And the stuff dries pretty fast too. Alright, and see at the top left, those are the pieces that bridge over the foot, like right behind the toe parts. Yeah, and so I used barge cement to seal all these little pieces together. These are the parts of the heels, the little heel patterns I made. And here they are, and they are ready to prime. I also burned on the heel parts a little groove onto the back because her heel armor has a little groove. But yeah, I use black Plastidip. Don't buy the white kind. It's like actually trash. And it gets all like gunky. But the black kind like works really good. So yeah, these are all heat sealed, and then I used the Plastidip. And then I spray painted all that silver, but I didn't show you because I forgot to film it. But yeah, this is the belt part. I made a tape pattern to make the belt. And this is 5mm craft foam, and I cut it out. I cut 2 pieces out, and then I had to cut a little bit extra because they weren't big enough. And then I drew the pattern on based off of that. I did kind of a sloppy job on this too, but I made a little stencil and I kind of like went along with it. And then after I razor bladed all that out with like an X-Acto knife, I took a Dremel and I smoothed all of the edges because they were like kind of sloppy looking before I did it, because I'm not that good at razor blading. So I just Dremeled away all the flaws. So here's everything painted silver. The top left toes, I like screwed up. I accidentally sat something on them because I'm dumb. Don't do that. But I painted with dark gunmetal paint. Yeah, so you can see right there into the little grooves. Yeah, so then I glued the armor onto the heels. And then I glued well, first I didn't show this, but I painted the little toe parts orange. There's the fur from earlier still. But yeah, I glued the toe parts onto the flat. And then now I'm doing this part that I was telling you I was going to show you how to do earlier. But yeah, just glue that so that your foot just slips in there. And it should stay. I wore these for a shoot and everything was great. And they bend because it's all foam. And yeah, that's why I needed to make the toe part shorter earlier, was because so I could bend my feet like that. I'm literally just going to take this old dryer ball and cover it in fur with hot glue. A couple of parts I forgot to record and left out. So the belt, I heat sealed that, and then I spray painted it silver. And then for the underlayer, I took the gold fabric that I used for the chest part, and I glued a single layer of that onto the backside of the foam so the gold shows up. And then I glued a little bit of foam in certain spots to make it more sturdy, because after you cut out all the strips, it becomes like kind of flimsy. And then I glued Velcro onto like the front undersides, and then I lined up where that would be on the bodysuit, and then I sewed Velcro onto the bodysuit. So Velcro's on, I'll show a picture or like point it out like on a picture of me. And then the other part that I didn't show you guys how to do was anchoring the ears to the headband. So it was just a plain white plastic headband. Well, actually I spray painted it white. It was black and I spray painted it. But I put it on like a mannequin that's about the size, a mannequin head that's about the size of my head, and I Dremeled holes where I thought the ears should go, and then I put giant bolts through the through those holes, and then I glued the ears into the bolts. That's why I said leave a little bit of space, and it took me a while to like finagle them until they were even on both sides of the head. But that's also why I put wire in there, so that if something's a little wonky, you can adjust it. And they're really sturdy on the headband in that way. So yeah, I think that's it. If you have any more questions, let me know. I'm sorry that this is like so out of order and like so sloppy. This is the first time I've actually made a video where I like did the time lapses of my outfits. or how I made like a cosplay. My boyfriend told me that I should start making videos on how I make my costumes, but since I'm like such a disorganized person, it's really hard for me to remember to do this. So if you like it, let me know. I'll try to do more of these in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye.